Dome Theory, Bobby Manning here. Khobi Price by my side from the Orlando Sentinel. In Boston, as the Celtics prepare to have a rematch with the Magic, and what ended up being one of the more shocking results early this season, the Celtics fully healthy. Everybody intact. Robert Williams coming back. You expected some awkwardness there, but also a big scene at the Garden. That place was rocking, Khobi. They really want to get up on their feet, go crazy for Rob's return. Gave them a few moments, but otherwise, the Magic took the lead in the first quarter, held on there throughout. Great shot making, awesome defense against what had been the best offense in the league coming into this week. Now all of a sudden, Celtics hitting their first little bout with adversity here, and the Magic starting to hit a stride over the last week or two here. So we talked back in October. I think we both had a lot of fun watching the first time these two teams played, and the Magic played them tough again. Is this just a good matchup for Orlando in terms of the personnel they have to be able to slow the Celtics here?
Yeah, I guess it's weird because right now, like the team that the Magic have right now is not the same team they had back when they
That's
first
true.
played. So it's like the first game, who played? Cole Anthony was available. I guess Cole was available in both games, but Jalen would just got hurt, but Markel wasn't playing. Chuma was available, and now he's not available. But and Wendell was available, but now he's not available. But Mo Wagner's
Yes.
available now. And Bol Bol's starting now, so it's just like a whole lot of like Paulo, Franz, and even I guess Cole, but now he started in the first game. Now he's coming off the bench. Like there's been a whole lot of changes for this team. But even with that, I think just how defensive minded they are, and like they're starting to get a better grasp of like the defensive changes they had to undergo or with Wendell out. I think they're starting to figure it out, and I think that's what's allowed them to play, reasonably well against the Celtics. In the loss early in the season, even what was that, Friday?
Yeah, it was a weird game. You're right. It's funny how guys are just flying in and out of this Magic lineup for another year here, and they're finding a way to make it work. Markel Fultz, awesome in that second half. Nice to see some flashes from him. You had Cole doing his thing. But Mo and Franz Wagner, that was fun. Obviously, Mo Wagner was with the Celtics for a minute in 2021. Didn't do much. They ended up keeping Luke Cornett over him and waiving him to bring in Jabari Parker, if I remember that right. And then he ended up in Orlando, I think, next team right after that. And Bol Bol, same deal. In Boston for like a second, doesn't actually play. Lands in Orlando. I know we were both excited about him and the things he did off the bench in that first game between these two. And now he's starting. It wasn't really his best game last night or 2 nights ago, whenever that was now, but grab some boards, make some things tough. And he's been dazzling throughout this season. I got to talk to him after the game, and I asked him, is he seeing like all these people sharing his highlights and, getting all this extra attention, because he was obviously a guy who came off the bench with the Nuggets, didn't play in Boston, and had a pretty slow start to his career. And now he's just breaking out in this crazy way. And he's like, I don't care about the media and all that stuff. Like he just isn't paying attention to all the hype around him. But this is a guy, probably more than anyone else on this roster right now, who has people looking at the Magic and being like, all right, what's going on? Like, is he the guy that people ask you about more than anyone?
Bull is probably Paulo still, to be honest, and Bull like a solid second. I
All
think
right.
people really marvel at Bull, just the things he's able to do at that size, length, and skill level, the handle, the shooting, the shot making, shot creation, just a whole lot of there with him. I get the most questions about Paulo to this day, even with like when Bull was like at his, I don't know, when he really starts to first get rolling and when he jumps to the starting lineup and he starts to like pull out these moves night in and night out. Before people started to get real familiar with it, it was more like what's going on with Bull, like what's he doing. But even throughout all of it, especially since Paulo's come back, it's been a lot more Paulo talk than anybody else.
So, what are you starting to think he can become here? So he's on this 2-year deal with Orlando, shooting 41% from three. Not a ton of attempts, but solid. 60% from the field, almost 2 blocks a game, 12 points in 26 minutes, which is solid as a secondary scorer there. And he's okay at the free throw line. Good rebounding, and just obviously so much skill at that position. Starting to put together a healthy season, which you hope he can maintain. 16 and 10 per 36, which is awesome. What could you potentially see him becoming at his peak in his prime if he's going to stick with the Magic here and really grow with this core?
Yeah, it's kind of it feels kind of limitless because even within the season, what's it been? This was just game 30, so I think
Yeah.
he's one of not gonna hope you hear that. What
Yeah.
Franz Wagner and Bol Bol are one of two players to play all 30 games. Uh,
Did Franz hit 82 last year?
he did not, and that's why I'm not
Ah,
gonna. I'm. I guess I can speak on it because so it's weird. It was the day he got to like 78, I want to say.
uh,
It was the shoot around before game 78. We were talking to him about this very thing, like, oh, like it'd be really cool for you, be a rookie, play all 82, yada yada. That game, so that was in the whatever morning. That game, he sprained his ankle that night, and then he played it. So he played that game. He played 79. I think he tried to play another game and just didn't work out. So that's why he didn't play 82. And sports writers jinx, right? Because we asked him about it that morning, and then whatever, 8 hours later, he sprains the ankle and missed the rest of the season.
got to 79. Can you name the 5 guys who played 82 last year?
Sadiq Bey, Kevon Looney, Eric. No,
I
Eric
got him.
Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe didn't play all of them because he was on pace for it. Then he got traded, and that got messed up.
Yeah,
Mikal
you got
Bridges.
Bay, Looney, Mikal Bridges.
Uh, I'm blanking on the other two.
Dwight Powell, and yeah, 5 guys.
Who was the White Power? The White Powell and who?
Denny Avdia with the
Yeah,
Wizards.
yes. I blanked on him. The only reason I remember this list is because last year I was looking at it too much. I was like, oh, would Franz be one of 8, one of 7, whatever, one over 6, and
That's
then
it. I, let me see, like 20. Let's say 2010. How many guys played 82? Guessing it's double that. I'd imagine. Oh, there are a lot. Holy crap. Yeah, well over double that. Am
how
I going to
many?
count this real quick? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
Oh,
20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. 36
36.
players off a quick count in 2010 played 82 games. And that just doesn't exist anymore.
Wow. Well, again, I'm knock on wood. Magic have 2 players at least on pace to do so right now. So, but and that's one. All that to say, we're talking about Bol. I'm what he can be. Uh, Even within, I would say like every 10 or so games, he shows something different. Like the first 10 games, 8, 7, 8, 10 games, he was showing a lot, just like those quick hitters. He's really taking advantage of himself on the baseline and getting out of transition. Then the shot making, shot creating starts to come in, and now he's showing a little bit more passing flashes than than I thought he was going to show at this point. So he's continuing to develop, in real time. So I think there's limitless, especially offensively. Defensively, where I want to see, I guess, a little bit more, not production, but a little bit more aptitude. Sometimes at that height and that size, especially sometimes being more perimeter base, he can get, guys can get by him pretty easily. So, but he's really developing very well, and I think if you look at whatever this is best to be game 31, you look at game 71, I think we're going to see a different Bull at that point than we even see right now.
Yeah, and it's amazing the fact that he's doing all this after a year where he didn't play. And I guess he had the off season where he's able to watch a lot of film and stuff like that and see the different points he wanted to improve on. But you don't expect a guy to make a leap after missing pretty much a year of basketball as he did last year, which is what makes it even more extraordinary. And you're gonna have the people who are looking at what he's doing down there and being like, man, the Celtics could have had him. They let him go, blah, blah, which is probably true to some degree. I'm sure there were multiple ways. I haven't thought about it, but there were probably multiple ways that the Celtics could have gotten under the tax. And the easiest at the time was trading Bol and PJ Dozier, who I don't think he's back in the league yet. He was a solid bench player, but trade both them down to Orlando. Orlando cuts Dozier, keeps Bol. If the Celtics kept sinking maybe last year, you hold on to him and I remember when they first got him from Denver, I was like, all right, this could be like a second draft guy. Like, didn't work in Denver. Give him another chance in Boston, see how it goes. Orlando did instead. They're the rebuilding team here. Detroit actually is the team that probably has to look at him and be like, man, what could have been? Because my friend reminded me of this. I was out in LA. He's a Pistons fan. The Pistons actually traded for him the
Mm-hmm.
last deadline, and the physical didn't go through. They didn't like the foot. He ends up getting surgery after that, and that's what knocked him out for the year. But they were about to get Bol Bol for, I think, Rodney Magruder, which, I mean, Bol would have fit right in with what the Pistons are doing, not to mention get playing time and all that.
Yeah, that's the one. Forget. I think it was. I forget. It was either beat writer for the Pistons or the beat writer for the Nuggets who brought that up. Because yeah, he was, Bol was set to go to Detroit, and you kind of see where Detroit's at right now, especially when you compare to Orlando. They're similar places in terms of trying to they're trying to ascend. They're in the midst of these roster restoration, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it. And he would have I definitely think Bol would have got playing time over there. Now it's maybe it's a little different, I guess. Both Detroit and Orlando have a lot of the front court guys, so if you just want to make it fit, you find a way for Bol to get playing time. But yeah, I mean, he's found a place in Orlando that's invested in him, invested in his growth, invested in his, his development. And I think even when you talk with Jamal, you talk with, Jeff, they even say like he's showing, like he's just continuing to show different things. He hasn't, like, the other thing is, forget last year, like he hasn't played a lot of NBA basketball even before last season. Like I don't have the numbers right now in front of me. I'll try to bring them up, but he just didn't play a lot. That's the other thing about Bol. Like he was
Yeah.
drafted, 2019? He played 7 minutes his rookie year, and most of that, or a decent amount of that, came in the bubble. He played 37 games the rookie season, 32 games his second season, and then only averaging 5 minutes. And then he played 14 games last season and only averaged 5.8 minutes. So you add that up, you're only playing 328 minutes in 3 seasons. That's nothing real. He's already doubled that in 30 games with the Magic at 798. So it's just we haven't seen a lot of Bol, across the 3 previous seasons either.
Yeah, you haven't, and that's what makes it even more stunning right now. It's remarkable what he's doing. I do want to circle back to the Magic by the end of the show, but Celtics, they're hitting a skid here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know whether to panic and start sounding alarms, but last 4 games, they are last in offense, which is unbelievable when you think of what they were doing to start the year on that end. Warriors lost. They hit a wall, ran into some issues of stagnancy, turnovers, shot selection, whatever you want to talk about out of that game, where it looked like what they did in the finals against them, and then it carried over to the Clippers. That Lakers game probably should have been a loss, if not for that miraculous turnaround there at the end on the West Coast trip that we covered out there. And Magic rounded out with a loss there, where, again, just such a weird game. Like, the crowd was spilling out of the place at the beginning of the fourth. Like I said, everyone's trying to get up on their feet and get going, but the Celtics are just giving them nothing to cheer about. Poor shooting. I think they start 3 of 5 from 3 and finish 8 of 41. And Tatum can't get going. Rob has his little run, ends up out with foul trouble. And Horford gets ejected, which was probably the weirdest part of it all, for like swinging his elbow at Mo Wagner. What's going on with the Celtics right now from your view, and the little you've caught of them over the last week and this last game specifically?
Yeah, so of the games that you mentioned, I caught most of, if not, I think all of that Warrior game. What was that? That was in San Francisco. Yeah, because it was on the West Coast swing. I caught a little bit of the Lakers, Celtics, and then obviously I was in the building for Magic, Celtics, and especially in the not Lakers, the Warriors game. It was kind of alarming because that was right after they beat, like they dominated Phoenix. It was just alarming just how stagnant they were. So they were very, before that, whenever I watched them, they were very free flowing. They were playing with this great pace, and not just like, not, I don't mean pace of like quick shots, but just they were moving well, and it felt very like this. Your guys are kind of taking a step back to what you look like. I remember what you guys looked like in the finals. So I watched that game just kind of like, all right, so maybe the Warriors just maybe the Warriors have the Celtics number. Like maybe they figure something out and they know how to defend these guys. But to see that even against the Magic on what was that Friday? It was
Friday. Yep.
yeah, it was strange. Granted, the Celtics did miss a lot of great shots. Like even Mo Wagner post game, he admitted that they probably got lucky on some of the misses. There's one in particular, the Malcolm Brogdon just dead on 3-point shot that just I think came up short. And that's the other thing. Like a lot of their shots, I think were coming up short. The Celtics, that is. A lot of the looks from beyond the arc were coming up short. So I'm not sure if they're tired or their legs are a little shot right now, especially after the West Coast swing. But they're not playing. They don't. They don't have to. They seem to not have this consistently have the same energy that I recognize from them, especially that first game that we caught in Orlando, and even the games I've seen since then compared to what I saw on Friday.
Yeah, this is a conversation we had all last year at certain points. This just always seems to be in them, and it wasn't for the first, let's say, 20-ish games or so, maybe a little more than that. Like they had been so consistent on the offensive end, the shooting was so constantly there that you wonder if they were just going to be able to keep this run rolling and just tear through the league and be that team that the Warriors were there. They looked a little bit unstoppable and ahead of the pack. I was always skeptical of that just because of where their offense was coming from. I mean, they were shooting half their shots from three from the field. They still are. They shoot 61% of their attempts from three in the first half of this Magic game. And so they're so reliant on it. I'm sure you've run into this covering the league, Khobi, is there'll be nights, especially in this modern three-point era, where a team shoots terrible from three. They take a ton of shots from there. They're ice cold. They, shoot 25% from three, and they just go, oh, we liked our looks. You got to shoot the open ones, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just a constant refrain in the league now. You hear it from the Celtics, too. But if you're going to be one of these teams that, I don't want to say lives and dies by the three, but it's just a crux of your offense. We've seen it with the Rockets. We've seen it with the Bucks, certain Bucks teams. We've seen it with a couple of different teams for the last 5-6 years here, where if you're super reliant on the three, you go cold and you sense that early in a game and you have nowhere else to go, you're probably going to lose. And that's exactly what this game was. And I think the Clippers game and a handful of games recently for the Celtics, who are just really coming back down their ass from three. I mean, they were shooting 40% as a team to start this year. And you knew it wasn't going to last, but you didn't know what it was going to look like when it came down. And right now, it doesn't look great. Like, they don't have a lot of guys that can get great looks at the rim. They're not going to shoot a ton of mid-rangers outside of Jalen Brown. So when you're cold from three, if you're the Celtics, I don't know where you go.
Yeah, I think for them, it's tough because, like I said, they are creating decent looks. I didn't feel, even watching the game, I didn't feel like, oh, the Celtics are like quote unquote forcing it.
Yeah.
Some of you do wonder, like, are they taking especially with the team like the Magic? Like there were some shots where they were so open because the Magic are just very much we're not allowing a lot in the paint. We're going to protect the paint at all costs, and like we'll let you get those outside shots kind of as they come. But they're getting decent looks. So, but it's like you knew the 40% what they were shooting before wasn't sustainable. But to go from 40, which you're normally used to 24, that's not a sustainable either. So even if they get to in the middle, then maybe that game looks different. And maybe that's their attitude. Like they're going to take the long game with this in terms of like, we're not going to shoot 45% for the season, but we're not going to shoot 24 either. But we have to like keep riding this process because of the team that they are. They like you said, they're not going to take a whole lot of mid-range shots outside of Brown and maybe, when Tatum gets it going when it happens. But that's just, I guess, to an extent, you kind of have to like ride that wave out, and just if you go to the middle, most nights with the performance like that, at least offensively, most nights that offensive performance will win you game if you shoot in the middle. Defensively, it was kind of alarming, especially playing against a team like the Magic, where the Magic they didn't shoot too well either. They shot under 30% from three, but they still shot 47% from the field. Still got inside the paint, and they had their shot creation. Their shot creators knocking down shots as well. You brought up Markel, brought up Cole. They were doing, they're getting busy from the mid range, but that was something that was even more alarming to me. It seemed like the Magic were flowing pretty well, especially against a team who is supposed to compete at the top of the East.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we've seen from Boston at certain times is the defense lapse. It's been all over the place, and I guess it's a good time to talk about Rob's return. He made an impact when he was in there. Didn't get to play a ton. You expected that. 17 minutes, though. If you told me going in he was going to play 17 solid minutes, I would have been happy with it. But he hits the foul trouble early. Second half, he goes on this great run in the third, where they're honestly pretty disruptive. Yeah, like I'll agree with you. Fourth quarter, especially, Celtics got lit up. Third quarter, they went on a little bit of a run there, got within 10 or so off like 5 blocks and turnovers in the lane, and then Rob comes in and they keep that run going for a little bit there where he throws down the alley-oop and the putback on Brown's layup. And he looks pretty solid. You know, you got the conditioning issues that you're going to expect there, but he hits all 4 shots, 5 rebounds, an assist, steal, and a block. He looked like Rob, is what I'll say. Like, you didn't look at him and be like, man, the burst isn't there. And, like he just isn't getting up and down the floor well. He looks like Rob plus some fatigue. And that's solid for December 18th. I didn't expect him to be back before New Year's when the season started. So he comes back in 12 weeks as they expected with the surgery here, and he threw down an alley-oop right away where this great picture of all the Magic just like staring up at him. Like he's still Rob. He's still mesmerizing to watch. The crowd went crazy when he checked into the game. Like Boston just loves him at this point after the run he went on last year. And honestly, the Celtics, they're a pretty fun team to watch again after some of the weird offense of the last few years. But when he's out there, they become one of the most fun teams to watch, period, just because of how invigorating his game is, whether it's the blocks or the alley-oops he's catching on the other end. He's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I was honestly surprised just by he was spry.
Yeah.
He brought a lot of energy. Like I honestly, so you mentioned that third quarter, because it was weird after Al Horford got ejected. I think that's when the Magic made their run to go up by like 19, and I think is when Rob came into the game. I don't like mid of the third quarter, maybe I kind of because I think him and Brogdon came in at the same time in that third quarter. And I think when he came in, like he gave them that spark that they needed to just like whittle away at that lead even more and brought it down to whatever it was, like 9 or 8, the lowest of the third. And that's when like that was big for them. I don't know what they do in that game without the energy he brought, without the energy, the intensity. Like they also just lack that from what I saw last night. And he's going to be, in terms of bringing that consistently, especially on the interior, he's going to be huge for them. I mean, we saw how big he was for them last season, and even in the glimpses that he played in 17 minutes, you can tell that he's going to bring that again for them. And maybe that will help shore up some of their issues because you bring a different dimension. You bring that verticality at the rim on both ends that they'll probably need just if they're trying to make another run in the East.
Yeah, for sure. And he did change some things defensively when he was in there. He gets the block, but there were a few shots he really altered inside, and that was his power in the finals too. If you go back and watch the finals, every time the Warriors drove on him, they were probably missing, but they got a lot of putbacks and stuff after that made them get through those minutes. So he's a menace in the middle. He's a huge piece to offensive spacing. Like they did some cool things where guys were running off ball screens and he was rolling. When he's really in the mix offensively and knows what they're doing, because their offense is a little bit different this year, he's going to change things a lot. You just hope that he can play night in and night out, even if it is 17 to 25 minutes off the bench. Like that'll be a real impact, especially since they've had this great unit that it's basically killing teams with Brogdon, as you mentioned, and Hauser's cooled off a little bit, but to start the year, he was a big part of that. And they have some other centers in the mix that they can use to get him a night off here or there too if he needs it. So just getting him back at this point in the season, huge. So I'm excited about that. No Tatum today, so we'll see how that goes. Brown's gonna have to step up. Is Jalen's had a weird season. I get a lot of crap when I pointed out that he's been a little inconsistent here, but 7 turnovers in that game. Scores well. He can score at will almost, it feels like, at this point. But right there with Tatum in scoring, his efficiency's been great. He's got that mid-range shot, as we talked about. The free throws, 8 of 10. They've been a big area of progress from this year. I think in terms of great scorers, he was one of the worst free throw shooters in the league, and now he's been steady from that spot. So a lot of improvement from Brown to start this year. But defensively, I feel like, you talk about the inconsistency for this team defensively. It's on him a lot of the time, I feel like his off-ball defense wanes. He's one of those guys that if he can lock in on a guy, he's going to have a huge night. But they do a lot of switching, and there's a lot of handoffs and communication in the system they run. I think that gives him some trouble sometimes. So he has a weird game in this one, but you're looking at his season. He's in the mix for all NBA, it feels like. And head of his free agency, that's going to make him a supermax guy that they could sign a supermax extension if he's all NBA this year. And I'm going through some of the names. It's going to be interesting when you look at your Siakams and your LeBrons and some of these forwards who not quite healthy enough. Zion's in this camp too, I think. But if those guys settle down and Brown keeps scoring at this level, it's going to be a pretty packed race for, let's say, third team All NBA. But Brown, to me, he's in that mix. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, he should be in the mix, and I guess you kind of have to consider him this season compared to last season as a front court player, at least up to this point, as opposed to backcourt because of how the Celtics have started. I guess you can I can imagine he'll be a guy who can go in either slot, backcourt or front court, for All NBA.
Well, you don't want to be backcourt. There are a million guards.
Yeah, I think because that's how they do it for all NBA, or is it just guards, forwards, center? Yeah, it's guards,
forwards, centers. Yeah.
Yeah, so he should be eligible at front court, backcourt is all star. Guards, forwards, center for All NBA. He should be eligible for guards and forwards, which will help him in terms of, I guess, options. I think more people will go with him as a forward.
That's how they voted him last year, and he is a forward. He's playing forward for them.
Yeah, and I think think about the forwards. I mean, you mentioned Pascal, Zion, LeBron.
Tatum and Giannis should be locks.
Tatum and Giannis.
Durant's a relative lock.
Who else? You said
Zion
LeBron
will be there if he's healthy. There's no. I mean, he's scoring 35, showing up right now. And then like you said, you got your Pascals, LeBrons, Markkanen maybe gets in that mix. Although he's another guy who's on the fringe of it. DeRozan's always kind of floating around there.
Yeah.
Jimmy, that's another guy, health permitting.
Yeah, he's back in the fold. You got Jimmy. You mentioned Pascal. Yeah, I mean, Jalen's definitely in there, and that makes. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen with, honestly, like either the main guys out of LA with the Clippers. I guess Paul George would lead the way in terms of All NBA contention, but even that seems kind of So and then it's always weird with how you vote this guy, but Luka, I mean, probably go guard with him, but it seems like every single year there's always a debate about, like, is he a guard? He's a forward. But I think I would lean more guard personally. But yeah, Jalen's in the mix.
Yeah, he's gonna need a break for sure when you think of some of those names, especially past guys who have been there, George, LeBron. Like, if those guys are close, they probably get the benefit of the doubt. But also you got the winning in Brown's case for whatever that adds him, like versus LeBron. I don't know if Bron and Brown have similar seasons. It's going to be a tough one if the Lakers are in the play-in or worse, and the Celtics are the 1 seed in the East. So I don't know how that all balances out. But again, so key. You can offer him $300 million this summer if he makes All NBA, and that's going to be hard to pass up if you're him. Like, I know people have kicked around, oh, is he going to stay? Is him and Tatum compatible? Is he going to want his own thing? If they offer him $300 million, I don't know this. I'm not reporting this, but it's going to be hard for him to pass up.
I didn't realize it got that high. Oh, my God.
So let me actually pull that up. So this is what his contract will look like if he makes All NBA this season. This is from the good people at Spotrac. I believe the contract would start at 42 million, I want to say. I'm going to pull it up right now. Yeah, all NBA, he's going to make 290 million total. Starting at 50 million in 24-25, 54 million the following year, 58, 62, with probably a $66 million player option.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes, I just pulled it up on my screen. That is, yeah, that's serious. I didn't realize. I mean, yeah, I didn't realize
That's
it was
like
going
one
to
of those
be.
John Wall, Russell Westbrook style extensions. And Tatum will get one shortly after. Pretty much the same value.
Yeah, I mean, so granted, this will look better once the new CBA kicks in. Not better. It won't look as
Staggering.
staggering once
Yeah.
the new CBA kicks in. But that's serious. Yeah, I didn't realize. I mean, it's a start if he makes All NBA for the designated veteran. Yeah, that is serious. But yeah, so that makes the season a pretty significant one for him. But he'll be in the mix. I mean, even if he continues at this rate, like the turnovers are up. I saw he's averaging over 3 a game for the first time in his career. But the defense, to me, the defense has been, especially off the ball, has been an up and down thing with him for a while. But even with that, just the offensive production and the efficiency, like, that's going to put him in the mix, and especially on a winning team. But as of today, they're still the 1 seed. I believe even after Milwaukee won last night.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Tied in the loss column.
right. So even with that, like he's going to be in the conversation. He'll be behind Tatum just because Tatum's been better. He'll be behind Giannis because Giannis is you could argue the best player in the league. Probably behind Durant, but after you get past that tier, it opens up to a bunch of different guys, depending on, like I said, depending on how guys vote Luka,
Such a crucial vote.
how people vote Booker too. Like even I think Booker's been a guy who's been eligible at both guard and forward. I go guard with him, but sometimes people think it's weird.
And Davis too. You think of him, he's a center. I want to say,
Yeah, he's
based
played
off what
center.
he's played this year. But in the past, he's played forward, and I'm sure there'll be some people who try to squeeze him in at forward because he has genuinely been one of the 15 best players in the league this year. You could argue that he's first team alongside of Jokic and Embiid. You might even have people trying to squeeze Davis, Jokic, and Embiid on first team at the end, which in a positionless world you could, but in this structure with the weird all NBA system that they still have, it's tough. And Tatum benefited from that last year, making first team over Embiid, I think it was, which, if you were stacking up their seasons last year, Embiid was better. So it's always that question of like, all right, this is how it's always been done. I can't even think Hakeem and Shaq or something like that. Like those guys had to be on different teams. So you got to do it this time around too. But the league has changed obviously as well. So, a guy like Brown benefits, a guy like Tatum last year benefits. I think another year Tatum didn't get on, and that actually had a big benefit for the Celtics contract wise, because I think they saved like 25 million on his last deal. Probably kept him out of the tax some years there. And now you're thinking of paying Brown 50 million, Tatum 50 million, and then everybody else on this roster. They're gonna have to get ready to pay some serious tax for years to come here to keep this team together, which they will. You're an NBA Finals contender. They're gonna do that. They're paying a lot of tax this year, so that should be fine. I think they'll be thrilled to sign Brown to a supermax and keep him and steal that up this summer if they can, and go from there. So no concerns on the Magic side of supermax anytime soon. You're still talking rookie contracts and all that. I'm sure they're thrilled. The DeVosses are thrilled about that. You hit on Paulo. This team's starting to roll here with him and Bol and some of the guards healthy. It's so funny. This team has so many guys, so many prospects. RJ Hampton's in the G League, right? Suggs is hurt. You're still waiting on Isaac to come back. We talked about him last time we were here, and here we are again. Where the hell is he? But this team's starting to figure some stuff out. Mo and Franz, pretty cool seeing what they're doing right now. I saw they're both averaging like, I don't actually know off the top of my head, but they're both leading the league in points over this recent winning streak here. And they're starting to hit a little bit of a stride here. So I see what they're doing. Some guys have some injuries. Feels like they're going to sit them down and just roll with what they got. But what they got right now is starting to win a little bit. So you're wondering, they're close to that play-in line. Chicago, I think 11 wins is 11, and then you get the Heat and some teams there at that 10-9ish spot. So they're there if they want to go on a little run right now. But this is still a rebuild. We actually talked about this after the game the other night. You got your Paolo, you got your prospects up and down the lineup, Bol, all these guards. So if they really wanted to go on a little playoff push here, I guess they could. And if you lose in the play-in round, you're still technically a lottery team with an outside chance of moving up. But this team feels like, just looking at it, one that probably needs one more dive in the lottery here. And this is a tough year with so many teams starting to tank. So I don't know. Where do you fall on that if you're just looking at what this team wants to accomplish this year, or maybe how they feel about it?
Yeah, before I answer that, Al Horford was fined 25,000 for making unnecessary and excessive contact to the lower body of Orlando Magic center Mo Wagner. It was announced today.
All right.
11. One more time.
All right. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering if he was going to get suspended for that one, but a fine probably makes more sense for what
Yeah,
that
25.
was.
Yeah, 25K. Yeah, to answer your question, they are only 3.5 out from
10.
Excuse me, only 3.5 out behind Toronto for who's at 10 right now. I mean, this is a team where I think they really just need to see what they have, right? In all of this, this winning streak's come without Wendell, it's come without Jalen. Two guys. Wendell's figures to be your your starting big man of the future or in the present, and then Jalen, he was the number 5 pick last season, so he's a pretty integral, important part to what you want to figure out with this team. But they're rolling. I mean, I think I touched on a little bit earlier. Like they got their guys. Like they have the guys who are available, and they're just saying we need to figure out what we have with the guys we have available. The guys are going to come back soon. Like Gary is going to come. I don't know. Gary, Wendell, and Chumar on this trip. They figure to come back. Relatively soon. RJ Hampton rejoined the team yesterday. Got recalled from the G League. Brought back up from the G League team after a stint down there. So they have guys coming back, but they just need they had however many games, 20-ish games of just lineup changes, and they just finally found some kind of stability or consistency, even missing 5 to 6 guys per night. But of the guys they do have, they're saying we're gonna have a game plan for these guys. We're gonna have our principles. We're gonna implement that in that game plan. And let's just figure it out. And to the point is work. Like Franz is a guy who I feel has been under discussed in this conversation. In terms of the winning streak, like he's been
20 points per game in December.
Yeah, and honestly, I think he had a decent game when the Magic played the Celtics in October. He started out the season, not shooting it well in terms of from beyond the arc, but ever since November, he's been on a tear. Franz has been on a tear the past 25 games, and you talk about Bol, we talk about Paolo, but if you ask me right now, if you ask me who has been the best player overall for the Magic this season, it's been Franz. And the way he just drives into the paint, the growth as a playmaker he's shown, the defense is there. He's showing to be a very complete player, and he has been a driver of winning. I know he didn't shoot well in that Friday game against the Celtics, but even in that game, he had his moments. And throughout this winning streak, he's been huge. So you're starting to see certain guys step up in some certain moments. And I think Franz has been one of the bigger parts of that, if not one of the bigger parts of that.
Yeah, and last time we talked, we kicked around. All right, does he have more of a scoring ceiling? Is he going to be sort of this third man glue guy part of this team's future? They need him to be that scorer right now, given all the lineup inconsistency you've talked about, and he's doing a good job fitting into that, which something you want to see him be able to fit into different positions on a team, and looks like he's capable of being in different spots up and down a lineup, whether it's got to be that lead scorer. What's the most points he scored in a game this year now at this point?
It was 34 in the first game against the Raptors that they played in Orlando. What was that, last week? Yeah. Last week.
So
he's
he's got that 30-pointer in his bag if on a certain night, but he's not gonna put up 40, regularly and or anything like that. But if your second, third guy can go off like that, that's pretty good. And again, you're starting to see the pieces come together here. I really like this team. They start off so slow, so injured, but if Paolo's that piece and Franz is, let's say, the third guy, the glue guy who can do a little bit of everything, step up scoring on a certain night, pass other nights. And then you just have all these different guys who look like they're going to be really good bench pieces into the future, whether that's Bol or Anthony or all these different guys you look at on this roster. If they just hit one more time in that draft, or I don't know, sign the right free agent, which probably isn't going to be the way they do it, but who knows? They're coming soon. You're in a good place down there, Khobi. I think this team, they are just a year or two away from starting to make some noise here, and you're already starting to see some signs around it right now, which is good. There's a lot of teams down at the bottom. I'd probably rank them even ahead of the Pistons now, who I had a lot of hope for, but are leveling out with this Cade injury. The Thunder, I think they're even a little bit ahead of the Thunder, as exciting as SGA is. They just don't have all this other stuff around that one star that the Magic do right here. So if you look at all these tanking teams, I guess it makes sense that they're starting to creep up toward the play-in line a little bit.
It does, and kind of the last thing I want to say about Franz before we get focused on the team. Since November 1st, 21.3 points, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 50% shooting from the field, 37 point on threes, getting to the line 5 times, a little over 5 times a game. But he only has 15 field goal attempts. So if you think that starts to creep up a little bit more, he's going to start creeping into that, just consistently getting 23, 22, 23, 24 points a game. And it's just efficient too. That's the base. None of it is you're rarely seeing just inefficient shooting from him. Yes, he did that on Friday, but he's been consistently efficient for a while now.
And we didn't even mention this when we talk about this play-in thing. They have the Bulls pick.
Yeah,
Bulls are sneaking in the lottery right now, and I know it's protected, so who knows? You actually don't want them to win the lottery, but you could make the playoffs and finish higher than the Bulls, and have the Bulls go down the lottery, and maybe be like a 10th-ish overall pick. So that helps. That helps a lot right now with the decision that they're gonna have to make here.
Yeah, they're only two. So yeah, it's interesting because they're only 2 games. So the Magic, in terms of league wide standings, they're 5th right now, and they're only 2 games behind the Bulls, who are 7th. So you kind of feel, and it's top 4 protected, I think. So I think you kind of feel like with the Bulls, all right, 7 is good enough. Just stay there. Don't creep below us, because you do get worried. If they go 4 down, you're like, wait a second, we thought we're trying to get your pick, and if 1 through 4, we're not going to get it. But yeah, I mean, there's some potential for them to have 2, not just lottery picks, but 2 top 10 picks in this draft.
Man,
So
and this is why. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So it will be. This is why I think for the Magic is less looking at it. So we need to get down to the bottom as quickly as possible, because all these other. You have 2 picks, and you really just need to see you need to see what you have in your roster already, because they're going to have to. You mentioned obviously the Celtics are making their decisions in terms of Brown, Tatum, they're in a different stratosphere decisions. The Magic are already having to start making their difficult decisions in terms of, all right, of all the young guys that they have, of all the guys who could make these nice bench pieces, who's going to stay? You can't keep them all. You can't keep all these guards. You have to figure out your front court logjam, because even with all this, even that front court you saw on Friday is missing Chuma and Ji and Wendell Carter Jr. And some people's, and in a lot of ways, that could be a starting group. That could be a key to your bench unit or something along those lines. And you're missing 3 key guys who you've invested a lot of time in. So they need to figure out the log jams that they have, like I said, especially in guard and in the front, their point guard, 2 guard situation, and especially that power forward center situation. So that's why for them, yes, you think about the draft, you think about the lottery picks, but they need to figure out what they have in-house before they really start to focus too much on the outside.
Yeah, and man, I don't know if I was talking to you about it, but back there in that Donovan Mitchell trade saga there with Utah. Cleveland comes out of nowhere and gets them. New York was obviously the team everyone's looking at. And you even look at some of the things New York's doing over the last week or two here, and you're like, man, if they had Mitchell, you're really talking about something there in New York. I said back at the time, the Magic should have been a team that took a little bit of a look there because of all these pieces that you talk about that you're going to have to make decisions on here. Probably prime for a consolidation trade a little bit, an opportunity to acquire a guy who's on a long-term deal so you don't have to worry about him leaving Orlando immediately. And then obviously the Magic have all their picks plus the Chicago pick. I wonder what they could have done there because you look at this mix right now and some of the signs they're showing. You keep Paolo, you keep Franz, you keep, I think, your core guys here, probably like Markelle Fultz or whoever else. You're giving up a bunch of guys, but it's mostly picks based. I don't know if you could have actually beat like Markkanen and all that, but because that was a pretty good trade for the Jazz looking back on it. But I don't know. Like there might have been an opportunity there for the Magic to get a little aggressive and accelerate this rebuild there. And you think of this roster right now with Mitchell in the mix, they're not the Cavs. I mean, the Cavs are the Cavs right now because of Mobley and Allen and all these other pieces that Mitchell joined. But you're starting to see Mitchell really was a guy who could propel a team to new heights. And that's the kind of deal that the Magic are going to have to look for going forward, right? Is disgruntled star, long-term deal, who fits in with this mix of young guys and can raise them to a new level as a playmaker and scorer and all that.
Yeah, at a certain point, they're gonna have to, if they're not already, start looking at those kind of deals because I think this past offseason was the one where, especially after the season they were coming off of, was they probably felt like they didn't get a great feel for what they already had because Markelle came back so late. I think Jalen Suggs only played 48 games. J.I. obviously didn't play at all. You saw what Franz did last year, being all rookie first team, but now you're thinking, then you saw zero basket run. You're thinking, well, how's he going to build off of this? What more can he do? So I think this past offseason was, let's run this back and see, let's get as much of a clear picture we can before we really have to start making some of these more difficult long-term based decisions, right? In terms of who's staying and who's going. And that's a difficult thing to do because it's not every summer a Donovan Mitchell is going to be available. And I'm going to be honest, Donovan Mitchell's played tremendous this season. He's a guy who, when you talk about MVP candidates, I think the ESPN's the straw poll came out on Friday, something along those lines. Donovan Mitchell was not in the top 5. I think he was. Yeah, I'm looking pull it up right now. He was 11. That just shows how
that
great.
Feels low though. Yeah, he's higher than that, I think.
That feels low, but even when I'm looking at the other names, I'm thinking this league's in a great place because you can argue he could be anywhere from. I didn't put him in my top 5, but he could be anywhere from 6 to wherever the end of the list is. But
I'm telling you, they can make the finals. I've said that from the start this year. Do not be surprised if Cleveland comes out of the East.
And even with him, you do wonder just how would it look. Cleveland was ready for that. Cleveland, after the season Cleveland had last year, they were ready for that kind of move in terms of where they're at, not just in terms of their direction, but where they were at in their franchise. In terms of already having,
they were what, 10 or 9-ish? Yeah, like we said, the Magic could be 9, 10-ish this year if they go in the right direction here.
Yeah, well, I think Cleveland, they finished. It was also weird because Cleveland, I think they finished last season 44-38, but a lot of that was because Allen. And
got hurt
they started to have those injuries stack up toward the end of the season because they were at one point they were as high as 3, and then the guys started to go out, and it was just hard to sustain. And then they dropped to 8 because of play-in. So they were or did they even? They didn't make the playoffs.
They lost the play-in to Brooklyn.
They've lost.
And then Atlanta, right?
Yeah, and then they lost both playing it. So they were better than I think they were better than their record showed, and they were better than a non-playoff team. Which you think is Orlando this last year's Cleveland? Probably it's hard to say that when they're 10-20 right now. Yeah. But you can see some of the trajectories of maybe we can be that next the 2023-2024, and that can be our time. Or maybe it's this summer will be the time to make that kind of consolidation move. But right now, they're very much just, we need to figure out what's here. And it's hard to sometimes do when you don't. What's here is not like, again, we go back to who they're missing. They're missing Jalen Suggs, Gary Harris, Chuma, J.I., and Wendell. To me, that's their five of the six best defenders, and that's a unit right there. Like that's a rotation.
Yeah, and you're going to see all those guys again at 3 as we record this live on Sunday here. We'll be heading over the arena shortly. Of course, here at Dome Theory, we are brought to you by many great sponsors. Com.com/Garden gets you 40% off a premium subscription. When you head over there, sleep sounds, meditation, yoga, anything you need to relax, it's on the Com app. 40% off is a great deal. That's com.com/garden. Athleticgreens.com/Garden gets you a year's supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs when you head over there. Whole food source ingredients, powder, put in your water. It's vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, probiotics, and more, as well as it's around here somewhere. Rocket Money, rocketmoney.com/garden. You want the garden one to save potentially hundreds on unused subscriptions. Tells you what you have, what you don't need, what's going in and out of your account each month. Great tool for your money management over there, rocketmoney.com/garden. He is Khobi Price. You can follow him on Twitter at KHOBI_Price. Orlando Sentinel wrote about Mo Wagner after last game, who's starting to show some things for the Magic here after missing the start of this year. And he'll be writing again off Celtics-Magic, and we'll have you covered on post-game. Love the early start today after a long West Coast stretch and late night on Friday. So this is going to be good. I think these two teams are going to battle again here. Brown's going to be at the point of attack, which I love seeing because he's had a tremendous year. And I think sometimes it's good to just get him the ball and see him rock. Magic trying to keep their win streak going to 6 potentially today if they win, which is yeah, I think people will start paying attention if they sweep the Celtics in a mini series here. And Al Horford's back, Rob back. Can't wait to see Rob. Our guy Adam Taylor here, he's out in Brooklyn. I mean, Britain, not Brooklyn, Britain. So he's going to get to watch the game here. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Khobi. Always great talking to you.
Likewise. Appreciate having me on.
Everybody go read him. Check him out on Twitter if you want some Magic coverage. And we'll be back later this week here on Dome Theory. Subscribe, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and more. That's our show for today. See you over at TD Garden in a little bit. And have a good afternoon, everybody.